First of all, thank you everyone for joining us for yesterday and today. It's been a fabulous event, and we really feel energized by connecting with all of you throughout this process. And before I turn it over to Mike at the end to give some thank yous, I just want to express my personal thanks and appreciation for not only your participation, but your work throughout the year to make the transfer system effective. We really realize at BCCAT that it is a collaborative effort of many that makes the whole system work. So we appreciate you very much. I wanted to give just a brief reminder of some of the work that's going on across Canada. For those of you who don't know, we are not alone in BC in having a CAT. There are many organizations throughout Canada, all a little bit different within the context of their jurisdictions. And normally we try to accommodate an interprovincial panel into this event, but time and a very busy agenda prevented us from doing that. So we've got a few quick slides here just with some teasers. We will provide live links within those slides when we post them online, so you can follow up directly with those jurisdictions if you have questions. And to the colleagues across Canada who sent me some notes, let me just apologize in advance for the fact that we edited down quite a bit just to make sure we could hit some key points and keep things moving along the next 15 minutes or so. So let me just jump right on in. So there are 7 councils on admissions and transfer or articulation and transfer across Canada, one of which is BC. If we start from the east and move west, which I'm going to do, one is the Council on Admissions and Transfer for Nova Scotia. And that jurisdiction is considerably smaller than us, but you can see there through the graphics who the representative institutions are. And a couple of the key activities they wanted me to emphasize for you is that there is a new executive director, a longstanding executive director, Ruth Blades, retired in this past year, so a new person has stepped into that role, Jennifer Kitching, and they are embarking on a 3-year plan in development right now, and they have just launched over the summer a online, I think there was an issue with translating our thing, yeah, okay. Translating, an online course offerings portal within their website. So they have aggregated online course offerings across their institution so that students can find them. That joins their other existing resources, one of which is focusing on transfer credit pathways, another on spring and summer course offerings, and a third that relates to their transcript exchange services, which I believe is still focused primarily on high school to post-secondary. Moving forward to New Brunswick. Again, we've got an organization that's in a process of transition. There's a governance review going on right now, and it's really focusing on the stakeholder engagement, both within and outside of the post-secondary environment in New Brunswick. A couple of the key initiatives there are focusing on the creation of a micro-credentials framework within that province or across the Maritimes province more generally, and quality assurance review process in terms of making sure there's what I'd say here in BC, good parity of esteem and understanding of standards across that province within the institutional stakeholders. And you can see the member institutions there. Aha. Our colleagues from ONCAT are here, so you can ask them questions directly, either after this presentation or later on. But to give you a sense of ONCAT in terms of scale, it's a very large system, as many of you know, in fact, quite a bit larger than ours. You can get the sense of the data in terms of the course equivalencies and the pathway agreements. And I can say that we collaborate very closely with Ontario, and we're looking forward to more collaboration in the future because there's an awful lot of activity across our provinces in terms of student mobility and mobility between programs. So what was emphasized for us here is they have a lot of funded projects in Ontario that help to facilitate capacity within their systems and in the institutions for development of transfer pathways. I think it's fair to say, Adrian can correct me if I'm wrong, it's not the same sort of articulation committee network there, so there's a different means of facilitating those kind of transfer discussions and pathway development. They're also expanding services to include international pathways and out-of-Ontario credit equivalencies, so we're happy to see that. That's something, as Mike's told you, we've embarked on a while ago, and we are, I think, in bi-weekly conversations with Ontario on sharing ideas and practices across our jurisdictions. And Ontario government has directed ONCAT to build pathways to key labour market sectors, so we're looking forward to seeing what that looks like, and I believe Ontario has been in discussion with BC and Education Planner BC a little bit about some of the developments there as a learning exercise. Moving on to Manitoba, again, a smaller jurisdiction, a little bit different in terms of structure. Manitoba doesn't have a transfer credit system in the same way that we do have in BC. It has a lot of services that relate more broadly, some of which we would see in our context in the BC campus slate of services, and some that relate to pathway finding in terms of work programs. So there are three elements to their services. One is around e-courses. So again, there's a repository of online courses that you can take and the transfer credit equivalencies that go with them. They also have a letter of permission, an online letter of permission process, which works across the province. So if you want to learn more about that, you can give them a call. Open educational resources. I know they collaborate very closely with BC Campus on this and adopt a lot of the resources that are adopted here for use there. And finally, the Set Your Course tool, which really is focusing on career pathways and how educational programs overlay to that career goal. Saskatchewan, again, a little bit different. There's no CAT per se, but there is a post-secondary learning council facilitated by ministry staff with the institutions within that province. In terms of key strategies, a few things are underway there. International education strategies in development. There's a health and human resources action plan, one of which is focusing on pathways of foreign educated nurses into Canadian education programs within that province as a goal of sort of retaining nurses in the healthcare system in Saskatchewan. And they have developed a Saskatchewan Post-Secondary Education Council comprised of 20 students from around the provinces that help provide them with feedback on programs, services, and opportunities for learners there. Moving on to Alberta, our closest neighbor. We have a lot of strong ties with Alberta, and in any given year, we're usually presenting at their events, and they are at ours. And I know Anna, our research director, is constantly working with them on research collaborative opportunities. In terms of Alberta, it's a very long-established tradition there of transfer. I think it's actually been in operation longer than we have as a provincial body. A couple of neat developments there. One is they've developed the capacity to track transfer credit awarded with the students who are following transfer credit pathways. So they're working right within a learner pathways system that allows them to provide that data. We've provided a graph that they gave us so you can get a sense of the credits awarded by students. It's one of the initiatives that they've developed that we want to take a close look at to see if we can do a better job of doing that here. Also worth noting, I think, is that Saskatchewan institutions, 4 of the 5 degree-granting institutions, have now onboarded onto the learner pathway system and the ACAT transfer system instead of developing their own system there, which is wonderful use of services and efficiency across provinces. I think I'll skip over us because you've heard an awful lot about us today, but you certainly got a sense of the priorities that we have going forward. 4 ones I've highlighted here, the TCS program of pathway work. You heard a little bit about that yesterday and today. Mike talked about TCS modernization and consultation on that, and there are many other collaborations that we're participating in with other organizations here in BC, as well as with institutions more generally, and in general in support of the digital services strategy that Ben talked about a little bit earlier. Also focusing on facilitating Indigenous partnerships, both in the Indigenous language fluency programs and across Indigenous content courses more generally. One of the things we're trying to wrap our head around is how we appropriately acknowledge and identify courses with Indigenous context within the context of the TCS and the BC Transfer Guide. And we've been having some conversations with the Indigenous Articulation Committee about that, and I think we'll be moving forward in the next year in that regard. And finally, Anna gave you a bit of a teaser on the Profile and Performance Report, which for us is a foundational piece of research that gets done about every 5 years. That will be coming out, Anna, in the next month or so. And we do anticipate, as we've done in the past, that will probably lead us to doing some more survey work along the lines of a past piece of work called the Survey of Movers to get at the motivations of why students have moved the way they have, not just how they moved or why they moved or the directions they moved in. Finally, there's one federal or national organization called the Pan-Canadian Consortium of Admissions and Transfer that we have been a member of ever since its inception, I think in 2012, and then incorporated in 2014. And in this past year, I successively handed the torch to Mike so he can sit on that, that body instead of me after about 14 years and me being in that capacity. They have an biannual conference that's held in conjunction with ROOC, the Association of Registrars of Universities and Colleges in Canada. That was just this past June June in Calgary. There will be a virtual learning day that comes out in June of 2025, so we'll make sure that we get information to you in that regard. And it's basically an online day of learning on specific topics around the ins and outs of credit transfer. BCCAT has also partnered through an MOU with the Groningen Declaration Network to promote global student mobility and exchange of digital learner data and credentials. If you want to learn more about the Groningen Declaration Network, there will be a live link in the slide deck, so you can click on that. And work will be beginning on a piece, on a product that was developed a few years ago in conjunction with the RUC, and that is the Transcript and Transfer Guide. So this is the online repositories of definitions, terminologies, practices across Canada. Not that it's meant to be prescriptive, but to provide insight into how we do these, the language we use and the practices we use within each jurisdiction, so there's a better understanding across the jurisdictions. And finally, BCCAT is going to be working on rolling out a communication strategy and engaging with its users in terms of the development of the organization. So look for an opportunity to participate in that soon. And I think that's it. So unless there's any questions, I'll turn it over to Mike. Okay. All yours.
Questions for Rob? This is your chance. This is your chance to ask the questions to the big man. He's walking away. Okay. Thanks, Rob.